All right, Ron, take it away.
Thank you, Amy. Hello again, everyone. If you're joining again from this morning, you are brave souls indeed. Thank you. And welcome to anyone new. So if you okay, if you, as you heard this morning, if you're not fully aware of what's in your policy, it may or may not bite you or hurt you in the future. If you're not aware of what's going on when it comes to claims, you're definitely going to get hurt. So this is not as long a session. The process, I think we can get through. I encourage you to ask questions, please. Amy is going to monitor, and if you submit them through the message feature, she'll shout out the ones she thinks are important. But it's really important to grasp this and also to share this with your customers. So, okay, here, Amy, is this?
Yep.
Okay. So I always have to start with the disclaimer, and it basically says that I am part of the Department of Insurance. I'm an elder statesman in the industry, and you can believe what I tell you, but if you really want to be sure, consult a lawyer. It's standard stuff. Now again, Agatha and Mother Nature have a sense of humor. Day one of the season, and they come up with a hurricane. It may not hit us, but it's certainly in the neighborhood. And the important, this is worth repeating, the important point about this slide is that during the course of your policy term, you can make amendments to it. You can change your policy, you can increase coverage, add endorsements, you can do things. But if there's a named storm in the Gulf of Mexico, an insurance company will not change your policy. And they will not, most likely not write any new business. So that's something to keep in mind. And not that we want to reopen old wounds, but just as a point of reference, what we're looking at, $12.1 billion have been either paid or put in reserve for claims from Hurricane Ida. That's a lot of money. 485 or 58,000 claims. A good percentage of this is an important number in the industry. 86% of the claims filed have been closed. So those that were either frivolous, fraudulent, or the like is a pretty low number. And that doesn't mean that that number is going to go up. So that's a big hit Louisiana takes just from one storm. Jefferson Parish, I like to use them as an example. 195,000 residential properties in the parish, and 50% of them were damaged, enough to file claims. So it's a pretty grim reality that we're living with these days. So what are the objectives, again, of this meeting? We want you to know we exist. The department has done a lot in the past, getting out after a storm, having a presence out in the communities, and helping people with claims. And when I joined January 1st of this year, one of the things we discussed was changing that. I mean, that's like closing the barn door after the cows are gone, but we wanted to be more proactive, to get out ahead of the storm, talk to people about what they should be aware of and looking for, so they have time to make changes or prepare themselves in some way before the storms hit. And believe me, if you get it right, you can save yourself a lot of headaches when a disaster does strike. So know we exist, know what we can do for you, know your policy. If nothing else, after the end of the day today, please remember to read your policy at least once. And from that, ask a million questions. Your trusted advisors already to your customers. Having this information, armed with this, I think makes you an even stronger supporter. But do have the wisdom to know when to point them in the right direction. and please, I don't think your mortgage company that you're working with is the right direction. Try to encourage your people to seek out their own insurance professional, an agent, a broker. Call the department. We can help you, at least in terms of baseline information and where to go to get more information so you can make a decision. But this is something that is serious. It tends to be a line item at settlement, and it gets lost in the shuffle when they're looking at their total mortgage payment and maybe not paying enough attention to what they're getting in terms of insurance coverage. So that's part of one of the things that we're on about. I'm repeating it. Hurricane awareness. We want you to be just be aware that we're in the season already, and knowing this information is going to help when the time is right. We have a lot of resources. We want you to understand that and take advantage of it. So we're going to go through the objectives we just did, an overview of the department, what its mission is, and its organization. And I think that's good background information for you, because if it sticks in your mind, you'll know that, hey, maybe they can help, and you give us a call. And then, of course, the dreaded claims process. This is the battalion. There's our head coach right in the center, James Donaldson. And this commissioner is an elected position in Louisiana. And Mr. Donaldson is in his second term. He'll be up for re-election in 2023. And he's a pretty strong leader. He's a good guy. He's gotten some important legislation through. He's made some important decisions, I think, for the citizens of Louisiana. And on the other side of the coin, all the while protecting the citizens, he saved a lot of people some heartache by one of our key functions, and that is managing the solvency, monitoring the solvency of insurance companies in the state. And regrettably, since Ida, we've had 4 insurance companies put into receivership. And and this was through his act, through the work of our financial solvency department. We lost America's, Access, State National, and Lighthouse since Hurricane Ida. So he's a good leader. He has the people's best interest at heart. He's out there all the time, and I think he's been good for the state. Now, on our website and within the department, these are just some of the resources. These are actually some of the most frequently accessed. You can search for an insurance company or an agent on our website. So if you wanted to get financial information or their size, what products they write, a little bit about their history in the state, you can get that for a company. Same for an agent. You can find out who he's licensed to write for, the status of his license even, and any actions that have been taken against him, his financial situation, that sort of thing. It just helps you to pick the right person. We all want to trust who we work with and who we're dealing with. And we put a lot of faith that we're getting the right information at the right time from the agent we're working with. Please remember, if you're not happy with your agent, find another. There are plenty of them out there, and they work for you. An independent agent is paid through commissions earned from the company that they're writing for. So they're being paid to service your policy. If they're a captive agent, then the agents are on salary and compensated in various ways to support and service the policies they write. So they're there to work for you, not the other way around. We're paying premiums, they're providing coverage, but they're also providing service. Please remember that, especially when it comes to documents and information and anything that they've amassed on your policy, or especially your claim. So when an adjuster comes out, or an appraiser, or a structural engineer, comes out to look at your house regarding a claim, everything they write, every picture, every note, you're entitled to that. You know, they cannot withhold anything from you. And the same is true with the company. Anything that they compile, you have a right to have. They work for us. You can check on, this is a boring one, but rate and form filings. People see a rate increase, they always hear about it at the last minute when it's out. But the rate approval process probably starts a year in advance. It's submitted with a ton of information, actuarial data, loss reports, and basically they have to justify and defend their request to raise the rates. They have to prove that they got it wrong and their loss experience is showing them that they're losing money and they need a rate increase to stay solid. So it takes a while, but you can just check on the status. The good thing here is if someone's got a rate increase in the works today, you can expect it coming in a few months. You can get notifications on a regular basis. That would include things like bulletins, legislative updates, just events happening in the department or the state related to insurance. It's a good thing to have. You can both file and view consumer complaint. This could be useful if you're thinking about going with an insurance company. You can check to see how many complaints have been filed against that company in the last year or 2 years or 5 years. There's a lot of information out there. It's just there for the taking and to use. That's it. Fraud is an enormous, well, it's always been a problem, but it's an important department or office within our department. They're the ones that go out and do the investigation and follow up on every report of fraud. We follow up on every single one. And they're a good crowd. We have a facility where you can report fraud, even if you suspect fraud. These things are taken very seriously, as are complaints. Complaints are a very serious thing with us. And by law, the insurance companies have a very strict time limit to respond to these things. They can't weasel out of it, if you will. Here's another one, search for agents for servicing, bulletins, directives, and regulations. So there's quite a bit of information there. Number one for consumers, file a complaint. IDA, again, I've only been here a short time, but I think while it didn't set records, it was pretty busy. We had 3,800 complaints filed since September or August 28th when the storm hit. And at the moment, 100% of what we've taken in have been resolved. Oh, I can't see it, it's being blocked, but that's an insurance checklist. You can go in there and put in some, enter in some fields and pretty much get a quick check on whether or not there are some glaring holes in your policy, or you can see, maybe compare it against something that's being offered today if you have another quote. But it's a useful tool. Not only can you file a complaint, you go back in and check on the status daily. One of the things about complaints is that they're required to respond to the department, not to the consumer. So we put them on a short leash. They have 14 days to respond to the complaint and defend their position or a reason for denial, whatever the complaint was. And then it's kind of a back and forth for a while to request information, reevaluate, do another appraisal, and so on. So, but they do get settled. Not always to the customer's satisfaction, but they do get settled. For Medicaid, we have a small office that works only with Medicaid, and these areas can help you get help. And there's an appeal process for decisions in that area as well that we administer. And without making any specific recommendations, we give you an area to shop around. Again, you put in baseline information and you can be able to get a non-binding but good quote, good indication of what you can get out in the marketplace. So they're useful. So the mission of the department, if I can summarize that, is really two things. We're here to protect the public. That's why we were formed. That's the primary mission, the prime directive. And the other part of that, of course, is to maintain a market that's healthy, it's vital. The companies are not on the brink of insolvency. They're productive, they're making money, they're servicing claims, and there's enough positive activity in the marketplace to keep the products available and at an affordable rate. That's an incredible balance to keep, but those are the 2 points of our mission: keep the market healthy and protect the citizens. So how do we do that? Here's a breakdown of the groups. I work in this department, consumer advocacy, and we do nothing but work with, help, counsel, advise, direct the public. We do anything we can to reach out and get to people and share this information, make them more aware of their responsibilities mostly, and what to expect. I mean, I've seen some broken hearts after Ida at town meetings and other places we've been. I went to the tornado in St. Bernard after that happened. And we could have helped some of them in certain instances if we had talked to them in advance, or if they had this information, or they had read their policy. So a lot of the heartache that comes from a disaster can be avoided if we just get prepared. I mean, it's almost as simple as putting shutters over your windows if a hurricane's coming, reading your policy. Public affairs is the visible face to the community. Property and casualty is the area that reviews everything related to property and casualty products and services. The Department of Insurance reviews everything in this market. We look at the forms, the font that they use and the size of the type, what notices have to go in the policies. We certainly view their rate plans and their product offerings. We monitor their marketing conduct. Every quarter, every company writing in the state has a market conduct survey done. So there's a great deal that goes on, and all of the policy language is reviewed every renewal, or in other words, an insurance company can't put it in their policy until it's reviewed and approved by us. Consumer Services takes all the complaints, bless them. It's one of the bigger departments in the office, but that's what they do, both life and health, Medicaid, and property casualty. We talked about fraud, they're out there in the trenches. And financial solvency, I'm going to leave this up for a moment so you can read it, but they're taking the pulse of the industry every day and not looking to punish or inhibit, but just to monitor and look for indications that might say, this bears watching. You're getting dangerously close in being under reserved, or one of the many parameters that they have to measure a company's health. And it's just like a constant health checkup every month. That's the number one thing they do. Licensing is licensing. They don't get a lot of ink, as I said earlier, but if they're doing business legally in the state, they'll have a license, and you can check. Everybody's got a legal department, okay? Life, health, and annuity, like any government program, it's long and wordy, and I cut this in half. So the summary was a page and a half long. Okay, the star of our show. I found this, I thought this was appropriate. Winston Churchill. He originally said Russia is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma, but I think he would agree that claims comes pretty close. But what is it about claims? And here's where the stress begins. I didn't read, oh, I got a claim, where's my policy? And you pick it up, and what you expected to be covered was not covered. It's the first trauma that you could easily avoid. But let's try and wade through this. Before, if you can, before the loss, know what's covered and excluded. And when I say educated consumer, just read your policy, become aware, ask questions, very simple things. You don't know, and we don't expect you to know everything in the policy, especially the legal part. Ask the question, you'll get a straight answer. Always know the value of your home. You know, it's probably the single, for most people, it's the largest investment they'll ever make, largest single investment. And it's where they live. It's what they hope to hand down to children. But you got to know the value. Always know the value. If you make, during the course of a year, if you make any improvements, it could be as simple as buying a fire extinguisher to having a full alarm system put in, or, you know, on your own accord, you put a new roof on for some reason. Notify them, because two reasons. If you don't notify them of changes and you have a loss, the money you spent on those improvements may not be covered. Because remember, they're going from the day the policy was taken out. The terms and conditions that exist in that policy are what they're going by when they look at a claim. Until they send an inspector out, or you have pictures, you know, it becomes a point of contention if you're not upfront about it. And it's a good point to remind everyone that the insurance policy is a legal contract, right? It's real simple. It's not a product off the shelf. It's a legal binding agreement. They're providing coverage and a promise to pay claims, and in return, we're giving them money. And the roles, the responsibilities for both sides are defined within the contract. So like any contract, it's going to spell out who has to do what. And if there's anything in that policy that's not correct, that's not the time you want to find out about it. For example, I've seen situations where the description of the house was for the house next door to it, and somehow it got into this insurance policy, and the owner never picked up on it. So you have claim, and you can figure out the results. So it's important to make sure that's correct for that reason, and to make sure you're getting the right amount of insurance to protect yourself. And we talked about that. Inventory. And this little scan the QR code, this web link, this link, all take you to a free home inventory app. It's just what it sounds like. You can, room by room, floor by floor, you can enter, you know, little Tommy's room, you know, bed, dresser, cajillion toys, plants, a couple of snakes, whatever it is. You can put them, you enter them as a line item. You can attach a picture. You can attach a picture of a receipt. You know, you can accumulate that data. So when the disaster hits and you have a claim, you simply upload the file. Bada bing, you're done. You got everything they need, or they have everything they need, and you can prove it, because it still seems to be a shock to some people that when you claim you had the Mona Lisa in your living room the other night, or the Stanley Cup or something, you got to be able to prove you had it, and that's not unreasonable. So inventory, and now they've made it handy. It's always a bit of an effort to do it in the first time round, but after that it can become easy and worthwhile. This is one we say, we're surprised we have to say it, but we do. Is maintain your property. Too many stories about claims being denied because people didn't take care of their property and it was pre-existing damage, and they wonder why they lost money for it. This is an excerpt from a policy, and I wanted this to illustrate what goes on after a loss. This is how the policy reads. At first, it talks about the deductible. There's a simple explanation. Talks about insurable interest and their liability. You know, what is the company liable for? And then they're going to talk about what the things that you have to do as your part of the agreement during a loss. The number one thing is mitigation. It's prevent further damage as best you can. So if there's a hole in the roof, put a tarp. If there's water in the kitchen, get the water out. Simple things. Now, the ways to do that, you know, that's where you work with your agent and your company. Companies will pay in advance. I've heard of it actually happening because this one homeowner needed to get a Servpro or somebody in there to pump out water. It was that bad. And they gave her money in advance and just deducted it from the account as the claim was processed. So communication with your company, as difficult as it might be, especially in a hurricane, can pay off. It's worth the effort. Talk to your company, talk to your agent. Be straight with them when it comes to, you know, how many killer dogs you have in the house. You know, just be straightforward. There's nothing to be gained by trying to save a few bucks in any way. Just tell them what it is up front. And I'm going to get to, well, I may not get to it, so I'm going to tell you. There was an example that came up this morning I like. They didn't have a dog. Well, there's two stories actually. They got an insurance policy for the first time and they had a dog, but they didn't tell them. Now, an insurance company can refuse to write certain breeds. And this happened to be a forbidden breed. And they didn't tell them. And the dog, what do you think happened? Went out and bit the neighbor and he got sued and he wasn't covered. And he screamed and cried, why? He says, because you didn't tell us. And the same is true if you didn't have a dog when you bought the policy, you got it 6 months later and didn't tell them. It's all the same. If they don't know about it, if it's not in the contract, they're not going to cover it. So that I want to, just as an illustration of what the policy looks like. Now, as soon as you can, I mean, even if the storm, as soon as you see damage to your house, call your insurance company, file a claim. You know, you don't have to have a summary or a final picture of the loss. If you see the first shingle fly, you've got a loss, or at least you can file for it. So the sooner you do that, we're very good about putting time frames on things, we the department. So they have 14 days to respond. I'm sorry, it's 60 days to respond once you get your first notice of loss. That means that adjusters got out there, the claims, and they've started paying. Okay, let me go over that again. 60 days once you file the first notice of loss, the company has to have started the appraisal process, processing the claim, and starting to get money to you. So the sooner you get your claim in, it's like any queue there is. You're going to be the first one to get an adjuster. You're going to be the first one to get a desk adjuster. So call them, don't hesitate. Then your responsibility, number one, becomes mitigate the damage. And the emphasis is on reasonable. You know, the storm is raging. You don't want to send your husband or wife up on a ladder to try and put a tarp down. You know, you can wait overnight. And always keep accurate records of expenses, receipts, invoices. That is worth gold. If you get in a situation where they either do not want to pay or want to reduce what they pay, having receipts, pictures, any of that documentation is going to help tremendously. We talked about the home inventory. ALE is additional living expenses. It's, you know, your house is damaged beyond, you know, the kitchen's gone, so you can't live there for more than a day. That's one level of additional living expense. That's in your policy, and that will take care of you, keep you whole. Under emergency situation, like an evacuation order, there's another level of ALE, And that really just extends the amount of time that you can get money for. But it's important. And let me sing my boss's praises one more time. And during Hurricane Ida, a storm that was moving remarkably fast, it was not possible to get all the parish government people and state and the insurance commissioner together to agree that, yeah, this is an evacuation worthy storm. And they couldn't. So our commissioner, on his own authority, told people to evacuate, just get out of town. And it was a good thing he did. And most of the insurance companies paid the ALE expense. And some were less thrilled about it, groused endlessly, and now we're in court with them. But that's how the system works. He made a decision, I think was in the people's best interest. And he asked them to stand up. Most did, some didn't. Here we go. But I give him high marks for that. Now you have to get your notice of loss into the company again as quickly as possible. But certainly within 180 days, if it's a named storm, you know, a hurricane Ida. 60 days for all other perils. I mean, 2 months is plenty of time to say, I think I have damage. So the process, there's a lot of people involved. A lot of people are going to be involved in a claim, especially if it's big or complicated. Claim departments, by the way, assign their desk adjusters by dollar value in some cases, so they can take claims up to 500,000 and so on and so on. So, but you're right here in the center of it all, the homeowner and your family. There's of course the agent. I can't see, part of my screen is blocked. I can remember.
I can adjust that for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just didn't.
No problem. Hold on, give me a second. Okay.
I'm sorry. All right, so we're here in the center, and you got the agent, or the insurance company, and you can contact any of them. Your agent, you can call, email, go online, any way you can get to them, either the agent or the company, to file that notice of loss. And you can use telephone. So you got the agent, the insurance company, and within the insurance company, you have the claims department and the desk adjuster. This is the person adjusters are going to send their information to. We'll then do the first level of review of that and move it on through the process. Another thing I would recommend you do right away is find a contractor. I know people that are still waiting to get a contractor from Ida, but you know, get that person involved. And not only do you want to have them in the queue ready to work, but as you talk to the real source of headache with this process, the claims adjuster, right? The adjuster is going to come out and look the damage, write it up. Now they all use the same, they all use the same tools to calculate, you know, what 24 square feet of sheetrock is going to cost in Baton Rouge. But like anything, it's as much art as science. So they're doing the first look of it. They're going to write up the loss, and they're going to submit it to the insurance company. By having the contractor early, he can be a backup to you. He can be looking at the same thing, and he'll go over the loss, and he'll come up with his estimate of what it's going to cost to fix it, which may vary. So that's a good reason for you to have a contractor as soon as possible. The first adjuster will rarely get it right. That's just the way it is. It's not unusual these days to see 3, 4, I've seen even 5 adjusters on one loss. Okay, and I'll explain why in a moment. But so once they get it in, then the back and forth between you and the company, the claims department, is going to go on. This is the first real big place where documentation is going to help. If you walked around on a nice day and took 100 pictures of your house from every conceivable angle and just saved it, okay? And when the storm hits, you do the same thing. And you submit that with your claim, they're going to love you. They're going to, because you know you're doing their job for them, and that's good backup for you. So you're going to go through that process with the adjusters, and then of course in the middle is the mitigation work, roof water, and I think I may have mentioned this, but companies will. I've seen them advance money on a claim once the first adjustment is done to help you with mitigation. You know, to help you get that ServPro in there early to get the water out. It only helps them. I mean, the more they can minimize further damage, the better it is for everyone. Yes, ma'am.
If you call your insurer to report damage and you discover that the deductible may be higher than the claim damages, are you penalized for making the claim? Or is it true that there's no penalty for filing a claim after the storm?
It's a great question. Unfortunately, when you call, if you go to the point where they've assigned a claim number, you have a claim on your record. Whatever happens from that point forward, if they assign a claim number, then you're now a statistic as filing, and that I think hurts. I think that because it's never good when anyone puts a mark next to your name. I hope that answered the question.
Okay. And then who approves the rates that insurance companies charge? How can they raise rates immediately after a storm?
Okay. First of all, the Department of Insurance, Property Casualty Division, processes all rate increase requests, and ultimately this decision goes up to the commissioner. So that's the process. And there's a lot of back and forth. You know, it has to be right. It has to get through all the regulations in property and casualty to get there. I'm talking about homeowners now. But that process, if you saw a rate today, or if the storm, all right, the storm's hitting today. If I got my renewal notice came and it was 10% higher, it's just coincidence that it happened after a storm. For a rate to be, before a rate can be used, a new rate can be used in Louisiana, it has to go through that process, and that can take up to a year. So there's no rate. I would argue there was no rate coming out right now that wasn't submitted this year. In other words, we're still looking at rate submissions from December. And I'm just ballparking there, but it does take a long time to get through the process. So I think that was more coincidence than anything.
Do you want to take a few more?
Oh, I thought you had one. I'm sorry.
I do. I have.
Okay.
Okay. What is your recourse when the claims adjuster opts to not report all of your damages? I had a roof damage that resulted in rain in my living room and mold. My adjuster took pictures of this but did not report it.
Mm-hmm. Two things. Let me back up as a preface to that. We all know what the role of the adjuster is. This is a person that goes out, looks at the claim, writes it up, goes into the company. There are three levels of adjusters in our lives. There's the captive, which is someone who works for the company. State Farm, I believe, uses their own adjusters. So they're employees. They're doing their job. Then there's the independent adjuster, and this is just as the name suggests, the independent contractor who contracts with individual insurance companies to do claims appraisals for them. Okay, so you know, an adjuster, maybe he has a deal with two insurers, so he's going to get fed claims. He'll go out and do the adjustment and submit them. And then there's the public adjuster, which you know is the least likely to be encountered, but They're just out there trying to make a deal with homeowners. So there are rules around all of this, so what they can charge, what an adjuster can charge. Captive obviously is paid salary. The independent is under contract with the insurance company, and a public adjuster strikes a deal with a homeowner. And there are limits to what they can charge. They can't charge a percentage of the claim, that sort of thing. So the question was, let's see. How best to do this. No, yeah. Well, there's two things. One is you call your insurance company and say, wait a minute, this is part of the back and forth. You can say this didn't, he didn't include this, and they're going to have to look into it. But it's the adjuster's job to submit everything they do to the company, and it's, I think, your job to make sure you get a copy of all that and insist. If they say, well, you got to get that from so and so, insist. And then, of course, if any of that goes bad, file a complaint with us.
Okay. What happens if you're not able to get repairs done before another storm comes and you get more damage? Will they still pay?
This is yeah, the short answer is yes. This is going to come up more and more, and this is the answer I can give you today. If you have a claim and the insurance company has processed your claim, you've been getting checks, and the issue is something other than will to do it. You can't get the materials, can't find a contractor, that sort of thing. You have damage and another storm hits. They're still never going to pay twice for the same damage. So they're going to look at your home as it was, your home after the first storm, and estimate your loss based on the damage to what's left. Any claims outstanding on the old damage is going to be honored. They can't take that away. And new claims will be dealt with on that kind of, I don't want to call it depreciation, but that situation. Okay, here we go. So that's the circus that is the claim in the field. And you're going to, here's the other part I wanted to mention about adjusters. When there's a storm, when there's a hurricane, nobody has 150 employees who are just sitting around waiting for the next storm to come. Adjusters come to a disaster from everywhere. Connecticut, Colorado, Washington State, whoever's willing to come and work will come in and contract with companies and do adjustments. So they're not permanent. They get essentially a right to work because they are licensed adjusters, just not licensed in Louisiana. And so they can come in a storm like this and do the job. But they're not familiar with the surroundings. They're not familiar with, building codes vary. And I always say a window that works, a replacement window in Connecticut is not going to be the same window you put here in Louisiana. So things like that. And then, like human nature, you get some guys who just say, oh, this is crazy, I've had enough of this, and leave. And then they just drop the ball. They're under no obligation, to make sure their data gets to the next person. At least they don't believe they are. And so there's lots of ways for this to fall through the floor. And when you get a second, first adjuster rarely gets it right. So you have another one come out. And then you're going to discuss that. So he's not available. I got to get a third. And it goes on like that. So the flow of information, the continuity of it is not what it should be. So that's another reason we stress save everything. Ask for everything and then save everything. That one little slip of paper can make a difference.
John, what would you recommend from a realtor, not only individually for their own claims process, but if their clients reach out to them and say, I'm having trouble, what is that recommendation other than to try to get some documentation? What's the best practice they can
Well, I would say just first of all, report it, make your complaint known to everyone possible. And us, and to the department, because we can get the most action, I think, the quickest. But just knowing who to go to, keeping those numbers handy, of who you can talk to and get to the right person, if you can.
What can people do to deny a second adjuster or?
They'll never be denied. Well, they simply can't. They can't deny sending an adjuster out. A company can challenge, like, I've seen a homeowner want to bring in a structural engineer, which is obviously different from an adjuster, and the company arguing not wanting to do that. But no, they have to send someone out to adjust. If they delay, file a complaint with us, and then we get on it. That's probably the biggest, certainly claims is the biggest source of complaints of all. But time delay is what's been the biggest specific complaint. I haven't heard from anyone. So filing a complaint either with the company or with us will get the best action, I think, the quickest.
There's a question that says, who determines if the adjuster got it right?
Well, no claim is ever really closed, okay? That's a point I hope we get to, but if you're not happy, if you can prove there's more damage that's been missed, then a claim stays open until both parties settle completely. The damage, I don't know. Give me the last part of that again.
Saying who determines if the adjuster's got it
No.
right?
Well, you do ultimately, I think, is the short answer. Because if they're going to have to send you a settlement. If you file the complaint, that settlement is going to come through us to you, and you're either going to accept it or not. And you can keep going back and forth like that for as long as you want. If you truly can't come to an agreement, you can request arbitration if they agree to that. But sooner or later, you're going to have to settle.
Okay, and if a homeowner, can a homeowner be directly penalized with a maintenance fee for making the claim on a named storm?
No, that's a good question. But here's the way it works with any other peril, just as standard perils we all face. If you have 2 or more claims in a period, 3-year period, they can cancel you for cause for underwriting reasons. For a named storm, if you have 2 or more claims based on acts of God, I think is the wording, they cannot cancel you for that. So there's no penalty for filing 6 claims in a 2-year period if they were due to a hurricane or a tornado or something.
Okay. When is the claim actually settled? Is it after you receive the check? Can you go back? If so, how long of a time frame is the settlement statement?
It's not settled until both parties agree or just get tired of each other and throw your hands up. But no, you get and this is a really good question because some people think they get a check, their claim is done. That's simply not true. You can file supplemental claims as long as you can prove damage that they missed. I think that got kind of referred to an earlier question, but if you bring your contractor in and says, well, we just found something they missed, you can support it and they approve it, then it'll keep going.
So back to the penalized part, can a company refuse to renew as a result of the storm?
No. Not simply because of the name storm, but if they have other underwriting reasons, they can certainly cancel. They can't say because of Ida, you're done.
Okay, okay, you want to move on, and then we'll take more questions after.
Simply put, this is just kind of the wheels of justice grinding through. File a claim any way you can. Take photos, as long as it's safe, mitigate, be safe. Having an inventory of damaged property, receipts, proof of any kind. And in the time between the storm clears and the adjuster shows up, try to get some of that done. Have as much handy as you can. It's only to your benefit. And then after the inventory, meet with the adjuster, contractor, and then the kind of cycles through again. It's good. I think that covers the process. So this is more support, but when you have a loss, be sure to call as soon as possible to your agent. I'm being redundant here for a reason, not just because I'm boring. Okay, this is what we want you to leave with. Keep logs, keep records. Get the contractor on board and compare. And this last point here, companies really want you to mitigate damage for everyone's sake. And but before you go and do something, it's always a good idea to call them, call your claims, not your adjuster, but call your agent or the company and say, look, this is bad. I'd like to do this just to keep everything safe. They will be open to that and supportive. So don't be afraid to talk to them, but do it before you do anything, just to cover yourself. Cash checks. I mean, one check is not a settlement. That's simply a check for what they've agreed to pay. Supplemental claims can be filed all the way up until everyone is settled. Now, specific to every policy is language that covers the time frame. How long do you have to submit a claim for damage before it's expired? And that's specific to each company. This is kind of backpedaling a little bit. The adjuster, the inspections has to begin within 14 days from the time you put it. So again, that's just the idea of, of getting that first notice in as quickly as possible. And, you know, it's just a fact of life, we're going to need more than one. The number that they came up with, the actual estimate, the companies are going to do that based on the cost of materials and time and labor on the date of the loss. And we can thank COVID and everything around it for this, but cost of materials and labor, there was a time after Ida where it was being calculated almost hourly. How much they're going to, what price they're going to put to that hourly rate.
So Ron, this is a good time to ask if the siding on the house is not available when if the siding on the house is not available, are they responsible to pay for replacing the entire house with new siding because it won't match?
The answer to that is the language, the wording in the contract. The phrase is of like kind and quality. So we will replace, we will repair, we will restore your property with materials of like kind and quality, which in the short means it may not be exact. And the best example I can think of is roofing shingles. It's an 80-year-old house. The company that manufactured the roofing tiles went out of business 50 years ago. They simply can't get, they can give them a 30-year guaranteed, same quality, better material, but they don't match in color or texture. They're only obligated to supply like, kind, and quality. Would someone please ask me a question I can give you a really good answer to, a positive answer? I'm dying over here.
Let me ask, why do we need multiple adjustments? Is this a stall tactic?
No, well, not, no, I can't say it is. For some of the reasons I described a few minutes ago, these people are blowing in from everywhere to work on a disaster. And they tend to not bounce around, but someone will work 2 days and quit. Someone will, I forgot to do it, I'll do it later. Wasn't familiar with the hiring company's procedures. Didn't submit data on time. There's a lot of reasons why that particular chain, link in the chain, breaks so easily. An adjuster from New York State is not going to do the same job on a house in Louisiana as someone local. Just different. They all know how to do adjustments, but the nuances of it, and in some cases the codes. So that's where we are.
Okay. If the cost of supplies set at time the claim is filed, by the time the contractor is available and the cost has risen 10%, should you not wait until you have a contractor who can start so you are paid the whole cost of the loss?
That's an interesting question. I want to be careful because I don't like to really draw too many conclusions when it comes to money, but can I defer that just for a moment?
I think there's a mortgage question that you're getting to.
Oh, okay.
And then how long do you have to get repaired? Once you get repaired and now, okay, so once you get a fee, how long do you have to get it repaired? And if it costs more at that time, will the company pay the difference?
If they filed their claim, they got their check, the time from they get the check to the time what they're responsible? No. If they've been given money and they've settled their claim, and this is not new damage they found, but if they've settled their claim, they have their money, and from the time they get their money to the time they do the actual work, no, the company's not. The company's not.
Pay out versus with the contractor service.
No, that's depreciation of something.
But if you get a contractor service and it's less than the insurance, they don't give you can't use it, and that's the insurance company.
Sure. That was
Prior to when.
use that as leverage to
Yeah.
get the company to come around. I'm sorry, Amy, you were pointing me to.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about the adjusters, the 3 types. So the bank. I'm losing my. Okay. If you have a mortgage on your property, the bank is going to be first in line for the money they gave you. That's the way it is. So, $100,000 house. You borrowed 80,000. The insurance, the bank is going to be on the policy as an additional insurer. So that means they're tied to the value or the property as long as you have a deal with them. So you submit a claim, claims processed. You get the claims check and you say, great, let's get to work. And you see that the bank's name is on there as well because they're the additional insurer. So you have to submit the check to the mortgage company and then they disperse the fund from there. Let's do that.
What happens if you have an insurance company that makes the check out to the previous mortgage company and the loan was sold on the secondary market? And if the check was made to.
If it was just a case of the first mortgage company being sold, then it should follow with it. That shouldn't be an issue. And if it's something else, then there's this number here. It's not us, not the part of insurance, but financial institutions deals with that all the time. You know, if it's clerical error kind of thing, I just go right back to whoever issued the check and say, can't we fix this? It'd be faster than the other, but in all cases, they would take responsibility.
Get a statement next to my room.
Do you want to do a quick break?
Yes. Actually, okay. I want to get Sonia in too.
Okay, yeah. And then we'll get her on.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that? Let's take a quick break and then we'll get Sonia on.
Sonia, if you can hear me, we're going to connect with you now.
Yep, I can hear you.
55 minutes.
Hey, folks, we're going to start again in about 5 minutes.
What I'll do is I'll pull questions and put them to you and you can choose.
I'll take all the questions. Thank you.
You know, insurance has been a tricky. Oh. Thank you.
I'm going to take that one.
Very specific questions. You get a little bit more information.
Oh, for that story, for sure.
They're all on that story.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty impressive that the agency has responded to 100% of complaints.
I'm not kidding. It's not a shock.
And I know that she's the Department of Insurance take it to. And if an insurance company gets a complaint, they immediately.
They have to.
Yeah. And
It's still, it's still trying.
There we go.
Not everyone, of course, but some of these companies, they just, well, I thought you did. Well, the sorry is an excuse. Again, it takes no time. It's a fault.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
yeah,
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Sonia, there? Are you there?
Yeah, let me know when you're ready to roll.
Okay. We have a couple minutes.
we found you in Alabama.
I'm sorry?
Sonia.
Yeah. Mainly, mainly because of what Sonia and her people do. You know, I think it's in part they have a willing government, state and local, an insurance commissioner who supportive. Are we missing? I think it's time.
We started 2:08. Do you still have a lot of content after?
No, I'm done. Okay.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started again. Everybody want to wrap up anything that they started, and we're gonna turn this over to Sonia to do her part. And then following this, what we'll do is we'll kind of dive into a couple of the other questions before we wrap it up.
Okay, sounds good. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Okay, I know it's late in the afternoon. I promise I won't keep y'all long, and I have some pretty interesting stuff to share. So we're going to talk a little bit about beyond code construction benefits, what that means and why it's important. So first of all, let's talk about what a code is. Okay, a building code is a collection of regulations that are adopted by a municipality or a local town or city that govern how buildings, homes, and commercial buildings are constructed. So those are the basic rules. You'll often hear people say, well, it's built to code. Well, your local code is the minimum legal requirement. Something can always be built better than code. That doesn't mean that codes aren't good or important. We know that codes work. These are houses that went through Hurricane Harvey, which was a Category 4 in Texas a couple of years ago. This was in the coastal bend, and they do have building codes there, and they are well enforced. So even if you have a local building code, if it's not enforced, it doesn't do a whole lot of good. So you can see codes as codes get better as time goes on. We learn things. We learn that, hey, this didn't work. We need to change that. You can see in the upper left-hand corner there, that is a house that was built in 2017. It fared pretty well during Hurricane Harvey. It's completely intact. Just below it is a house that was built in 2000. That house was a complete and total loss. There is nothing left of it. You'd be picking through and finding belongings. So we know that building codes work. However, one thing we have learned time and time again is even if your house is still there, you can have a total loss because of water intrusion through the roof. So we know, and we have known for a very long time, that the roof is the weak point of a building structure. So my name is Sonia Sheffield. I work for Smart Home America. And you may say, oh, you guys do wired houses. Well, no, we don't. So at Smart Home America, we believe that a smart home has nothing to do with the Internet of Things. It has everything to do with building a home that can survive your local weather. So a smart home is a home that resists the winds from hurricanes and low-level tornadoes. It resists the rain that comes with those events. It also resists flooding. It's still around, doesn't get flooded. And once those things are in place, it is easier and more affordable to adequately insure. So when catastrophe does happen, you are able to completely recover from your loss because you have adequate insurance. Once all of those things are in place, then we want to see the house built in such a way so that the utility bills are low and affordable and that it's sustainable. So it's affordable over the long run. Once your house is a smart home, then you can wire it up for Alexa and your refrigerator that makes your grocery list and your Ring camera that tells you who's been dropping off things on your doorstep. So we're based in Mobile, Alabama. And after Ivan, which hit very close to Mobile, and then Katrina. We started looking around to see there's got to be a better way to build so that every time a hurricane comes through, we don't have to do this all over again, because we get a hurricane every year, right? I mean, whether it's small or big, we're going to get something every year. So we have got to find a better way to do this. So what we found was IBHS, that's the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. And they actually do research on how to put homes together with materials that are already out there and make those homes more resilient. It is beyond code. So they take code and they add just a little bit to make that home resist that storm so much better. These houses are not hurricane proof. They're not tornado proof, but they resist the weather better, much better, so that your insurance claims on average will be much smaller and much fewer, many fewer. So we've been doing this for quite a while. And like I said, we're based in Alabama, which is why there are so many. These are the numbers of fortified homes across the nation. And there's a lot in Alabama because Smart Home has been pushing it a lot here. We've worked a lot at the state level to get our insurance discounts where they are. We have a grant program here in the state, and we've done a lot to foster that. So all over the nation, there are over 37,000 homes that are built to the fortified standard. And you may say, this is really great. This is awesome. But how does it really work when you have it out there and a hurricane hits in real life? Well, in 2020, in September of 2020, Hurricane Sally hit our area. It hit almost exactly the same place Hurricane Ivan did 16 years before. So Hurricane Sally hit, she was a high category 2, which anybody who lives in hurricane zone, that's, high category 2. Not that you should ignore it, but it's not that concerning. The problem with Sally was Sally went slower than your walk to the bathroom. She moved so slowly that there were people that sat in the eye wall for 8 hours. So I don't care how small your hurricane is or how low the winds are. When you're sitting in those eye wall winds for 8 hours, that's a lot of damage. So we had almost 17,000 homes that were fortified. Now, these were not all new construction. A lot of these homes were existing homes that had a fortified roof put on. There's 3 levels. There's roof, there's silver, which you can do on an existing structure, and then there's gold, which is usually new. We're not going to go into that detail today, but the point is not all these structures were brand new structures. So what happened when Sally hit? Well, 95% of those homes did not have enough damage to make an insurance claim. That 5% that did includes all the trees that fell over and those kinds of things. Those are going to result in claims if there's enough damage, but they're not going to actually affect necessarily your fortified home. Like I said, it's not hurricane proof. 95% of people did not have a claim. So this is a neighborhood that is close to the beach. It's in Orange Beach, Alabama. They were one of the neighborhoods that sat in that eye wall for hours and hours and hours. You can see the home in the middle. That was a home that already existed. This homeowner re-roofed to the fortified standard, and he had no damage to his house. Why? Because his roof deck underneath those shingles were sealed. So even if shingles blew off, which in his case, he was lucky, he didn't lose any shingles, your roof doesn't leak. So anybody who's been through their share of hurricanes knows, even if your house is still standing, if that roof leaks, you don't get to live in it. If it's bad, everybody's got to move out. This gentleman was able to stay in his home. You can see in the picture, the camper in his driveway. Some of his neighbors were staying in his camper. So he helped all his neighbors move everything to the street, the carpet, the furniture, and all the belongings that were soaked and not salvageable. This is a home on Grand Isle. This is a house that went through Ida. This house was built fortified. This was not a house that was existing already and was brought up to the fortified code. This is a house that was built to the fortified standard. It had not a single bit of damage after Ida. Went right through the eye wall. Did great. So insurance companies recognize fortified, especially in Alabama. Now, the numbers I'm about to show you are from Alabama. This is a Truland Homes. That's a builder in Alabama. This home was built in 2008. It was not fortified. And it costs approximately $4,800 a year to insure. Sounds about right. The house next door was built in 2015. It was built to the fortified standard because it is a much lower risk, because that insurance company knows that they may never have to get a claim, or if the claim will be smaller from the homeowner, the insurance on that house is $1,152. That's a huge difference. The good news is, beginning July 1st, insurers in the state of Louisiana will have to set some kind of insurance discount. Now, for fortified specifically, it's not clear exactly what the rates are going to be yet, because this is something that has to, the insurers have to be, have to submit this by July 1st. So it may take a little while for this to settle and for us to see exactly what those discount rates look like. But
Sonia,
yes,
is there a resource where you can see who installs or can do fortified roofs?
yes. Let me, when I'm done, I have 2 more slides, and when I'm done, I'll put it in the chat. I'll put a link in the chat. Okay, great. That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that while I was on here. So you will start to see these insurance incentives, and there's also, Louisiana is working on some very exciting things as far as getting this fortified information and program up and running. And Smart Home has been in Louisiana trying to help everybody get this going as well. And as realtors, I just wanted to make you aware, there was a study done, and somebody asked me in the last, this will be part of resource. This is a published paper that shows that having a fortified designation on a home increases the home's value by almost 7%. Now, this increase is in Alabama, and it was the entire state. As you get closer to the water, that increase in home value is in the double digits. It's closer to 10 or just over. So people who live in coastal areas can get much, much more reasonable insurance because they have mitigated their homes. They've made their homes better able to resist the next hurricane. And insurance rates will reflect that. And because insurance is more affordable, it increases the value of your home. And people like to know that their home is not going to, be inundated by water during the next hurricane. So I know that was really quick and dirty. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Please do put them in the chat. I'll try to answer a couple, but Ron is actually going to get all these questions to me, and I will get all those resources together for everybody, so you'll have them. This is my contact information, and that will be in the video as well. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if you have specific questions. And I hope that you guys enjoy it. I know I've really enjoyed this class today, so I hope everybody else enjoys it as well.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Well, folks, that's about what we all had to say for today on the claims part. If anyone has any other questions we could address now, I'll give it a shot.
There's a couple of questions on if similar bills exist for Mississippi and for Texas.
I'm not familiar with, I don't think there's anything in Texas. I'll have to check. Okay, no, Texas is not doing anything now.
Okay. I'm gonna come over here. Right? It looks like the questions that are in the chat are related to the fortified homes. and all of that, so we can get those questions done. What about any others regarding the claim process that are not claim specific? So a lot of times people have specific examples that they're going through that they want to try to ask, but is there anything that's general as it relates to the claims process that we can still answer for you? Did everybody find this information helpful? Great.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, if you want to stick on and ask questions, you're more, you can. If at this point we don't have any other questions, we will let y'all exit a little early.
I had a
Sure.
question.
Yeah,
I had sent it in the chat. I had a question about the way recoverable depreciation works.
Okay, I hated math when I was a kid. But well, it's a, I don't know if they all use the standard depreciation formula that's published, I think, published somewhere on Wall Street, but it's basically a calculation of reduced value of the life of the product over time.
Well, actually, I'm talking about as it relates to when you have replacement costs on your homeowner's insurance, and they send you a check, not for the full amount, but the amount less recoverable depreciation. And they say that if you need it, they'll send it to you. And to me, that seems not right, because if you have replacement costs, you should be able to get your full amount.
Here's the way it's supposed to work. When you have replacement costs and the claim is approved for $8,000, they'll calculate the depreciation and withhold that and pay you the balance, pay you the amount left, and then when the work is completed, pay you the rest. That's how some companies do it. Some pay the whole thing at once, but in most cases, they'll calculate the depreciation, deduct it, and then make that in a second payment.
Well, it was handled somewhat differently, and I thought it was odd, but I had not experienced it before. And it had to do with the fact that they sent less than we had gotten estimates. And they said that we had to do the work and then supply them with receipts for the rest. But you're paying extra for actual cash value. I mean, replacement costs.
Ma'am, if I hate to interrupt, but that sounds like
Am I not understanding correctly? That's my
no,
question to you.
no, but it sounds like it's a specific claim, and I'd rather deal with that offline with you, if that's okay.
Okay.
We have your contact information. I'll call you back.
Thank you for the
So-
glass.
I'm sorry. To reiterate what Deborah was saying, once you show proof of, I have the same situation. Once you show proof of repair and pictures and they come check it out, then you get your depreciation amount that was withheld, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
so if there is something specific, Ron has provided his email. I would probably put those down and kind of help him triage where that needs to go, or he can help answer those questions for you. Again, we will make these resources available to you. Please go to our website, larealtors.org, and look at both the Realtor Resources section. That's everything you need to know regarding insurance, flood insurance, risk rating. And then we created a consumer section. So Lori in our office is very helpful in creating that. And those consumer resources are great for you to hang off of your website, direct your clients to see in that. Again, I think Ron mentioned a couple of really good things that are great touch points for you to utilize in your newsletter or in phone calls that you're making as you're prospecting or reaching out to referral sources. We want to be able to give you as much information to help you inform, not just for your own individual policies, but to be that resource for your clients and know where to direct them to. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Go sell
Thank you,
some
Amy.
houses, go close some deals.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Bye, Miss Lily.
Bye, sweetheart.
Yeah.